Every now and then we meet women who have a premature baby, and we always feel very sorry for both the baby and the parents because those first few weeks can be very tough. Now, unfortunately, you cannot always prevent a preterm labor, but you can certainly reduce the risk if you recognize the signs of preterm labor as early as possible.
Yes, and that's the reason why in this video we are going to share with you what the typical signs of preterm labor are. And we are also going to explain what you have to do if you observe these signs in the hopes that it will help many of you prevent a preterm labor.
Yes, this is Nathalie, a pregnancy and birth consultant and TCM therapist.
And that's Mathias, a researcher and Science Geek, and we help expecting mummies naturally and science-based.
We are happy that you're here. Let's get started. Alright, so first of all, please note that we talk about preterm labor if you go into labor before week 37. And that's because in week 37, your baby has completed a very important phase in their development.
Yes, and the problem is not so much that the baby cannot survive before week 37. In fact, if you have passed the 24 weeks mark, your baby is normally able to survive. However, the problem is that baby's organs need more time to develop.
Yeah.
And so ideally, your baby stays in there at least 37 weeks.
Right, so with that said, let's start with the most obvious sign of preterm labor, and that's a rupture of membranes. In fact, when your water breaks, and this can either be a gush or a continuous trickle of fluid, you can normally expect to go into labor within 24 hours. But it does not always happen, okay?
Right.
But even if you don't go into labor after your water breaks, you still have to go to the hospital because your baby is no longer protected from infections.
Yes, and if you're not sure if your water did break, please bear with us. Later on, we are going to share with you a video in which we describe the difference between amniotic fluid, urine and normal discharge. Okay, the next sign is obviously when you feel contractions. Now, of course, to some degree, you're going to experience contractions throughout your pregnancy, at least from about week 20 onwards. But until you go into labor, they are normally only Braxton Hicks, i.e. practice contractions. In other words, you mostly experience them because your uterus is kind of practicing for the big day.
Yes, but sometimes it can happen that a woman experiences true labor contractions even before week 37. So if you experience 5 or more contractions within 1 hour, then it could be a sign of preterm labor. How do you know it's a contraction? Well, all you need to do is sit back in a chair and palpate your belly when you experience what you think is a contraction.
Yes. Normally when you palpate your belly, you would feel parts of your baby, right? But during a contraction, that's no longer possible because your belly feels tight across.
Yeah.
Of course, this can also be a fake contraction, which is why you have to count them.
Yes, it is totally normal to have some contractions throughout the day, for example, after you had sex or after you change your position, right? However, frequent contractions within a certain time frame are usually not normal.
Right.
And just so you know, at this stage, your contractions do not necessarily have to come regularly in order to qualify as true labor contractions. So it's absolutely possible that they come in irregular intervals, right?
Yes, and please also keep in mind that they are not necessarily painful and they do not necessarily come together with other warning signs. By the way, if you want to know more about the difference between true and false contractions, please bear with us till the end of this video.
Yes, so those were the two most obvious signs of preterm labor, and now let's go over to the signs that are not so obvious because they could potentially also have other reasons, right? So the first one are menstrual cramps or period-like pain, no matter if they're strong or mild.
Yes, they normally focus on the lower abdomen and they may come and go or be constant. In both cases, it is important to let your doctor know, okay?
Yes. Next we have abdominal cramps with or without diarrhea. Of course, the problem with abdominal cramps is that they can also be caused by lots of other things. For example, it could be a food poisoning or it could be a stomach bug.
Right.
But that's exactly the reason why women often talk to their doctor when it's already too late. So if you experience abdominal cramps, please talk to your doctor, even if it turns out that it's completely harmless. But it's always better to make a call more than required.
Right. The next sign is when your baby drops very early. What we mean by the baby is dropping is that the baby engages in the pelvis and thus reaches a certain station in the pelvis. It is one of several steps that your body takes in preparation for labor. In most cases, this happens 2 to 4 weeks before labor starts, but sometimes it can only be days before labor starts.
Yes, but just to be clear, sometimes babies do drop very early, like week 32 or so, and in most cases there is no problem with that. However, as a general rule, we would say that if a baby drops before week 36, we would talk to a doctor just to be on the safe side.
Yes. So how do you know that your baby has dropped? Well, one of the most important signs is certainly when you suddenly feel considerably more pressure in your pelvis, which may come and go depending on your position. However, there are also lots of other signs that the baby has dropped. If you want to know which ones these are, please bear with us. At the end of this video, we are going to share with you a video that explains in detail what the signs are that a baby has dropped.
Yes, the next sign of preterm labor is an increase or change in vaginal discharge. Now, first of all, please note that at the end of a pregnancy, when you are close to your due date, it's not uncommon to experience an increase of discharge.
Yes. Moreover, to some degree, discharge is also normal during a pregnancy. It all depends on the kind of discharge. What we don't want to see during pregnancy is a watery or bloody discharge, even if it is only just pink or tinged with blood.
Yes, a watery discharge can mean that your water broke. Bloody discharge, on the other hand, can always be a warning sign that should not be taken lightly, unless, of course, you have a bloody show at the end of your pregnancy. However, if you have any doubts, it's always better to call your midwife or doctor.
Yes, and then finally we have a less obvious but still potential sign of preterm labor, and that's back pain. Now, of course, some women experience back pain during their entire pregnancy. However, back pain as a sign of preterm labor can feel very different.
Yes, it's a low, heavy, dull backache that you will most likely feel below your waistline. It can be constant, but it could also come and go. In both cases, it's better to talk with a midwife or doctor just to be on the safe side, right? Okay, so now that we know what the typical signs of preterm labor are, the question is, what should you do when you experience any of those signs?
Okay, so first of all, please note that obviously you do not necessarily experience all of these signs at the same time, okay? It could be that you just experience one of them. But whenever you experience any of these signs, the best thing to do is to first empty your bladder. Next, drink 2 glasses of water and then lay down for an hour. Obviously, don't lie on your back, lie on your left side.
Yes, but don't entirely lie on your side either, because this can make it more difficult to feel contractions, particularly if they are mild. Just support your back with a pillow. And then check if the sign or the signs of labor that you experience go away. Moreover, if you feel any contractions, count them. If it's at least 5 contractions per hour, or if you experience any other signs of preterm labor that we discussed for 1 hour, then please call your provider or go to the hospital straight away. If you're not sure if you are in preterm labor, please call your doctor anyway. Don't hesitate to make that call. And finally, if your water breaks, you don't need to wait for 1 hour. Go to the hospital straight away.
Alright. So if you want to know if your water broke or if it is just urine or other discharge that you observe, please watch the video that pops up now. In that video, we also show you a test that you can do if you're not sure if your water did break.
Yes, and if you're not sure how to distinguish true from false labor contractions, watch the video that pops up now.
Right. And finally, if you want to know the 9 signs and symptoms that your baby has dropped, watch the video that pops up now.
Yes, and of course you can also find the links to all 3 videos in the description below this video.
Right. If you have found this video helpful, we would really appreciate if you could leave us a like below this video.
Yes, and for more useful tips and tools on pregnancy related topics, make sure to subscribe to our channel and to hit the bell.